Hi, today I'm going to be talking about the impact of electrification on the condition of our roads. So, I'm going to go over the history and an overview of the current electrification policies of the UK. I'm going to compare the weights of electric and combustion engine cars. I'm going to explore the road conditions that we're seeing right now in the UK, and I'm going to talk about historical experiments on road wear. The one in particular I'm going to talk about is an American one. It took place between 1956 and 1960, and a lot of the theory has come from that experiment. And finally, I'm going to show you some equations that we got from the experiments, and I'll show you the impact of weight on road wear. So, even since 2008, you can see there's been talk about electrification. Of course, back then, the technology wasn't quite good enough, but the Prime Minister at the time, Gordon Brown, did suggest that by 2020, all cars in the UK could be electric or hybrid. What actually happened, obviously not all cars are electric or hybrid, is that Boris Johnson in 2020 announced an intention to ban sales of new petrol and diesel powered cars by 2035. And that's pretty similar to the policy that we've got now. So the policy we've got now is that 80% of new cars and 70% of new vans sold in Great Britain will now be zero emission by 2030, increasing to 100% by 2035. And the way that they're doing that is, you can see the EV mandate targets for every year. So we're in 2025 right now. So 28% of a manufacturer's new cars are going to have to be electric. And it's going to increase every year until we get to 100% in 2035. So this is a pretty short time span. We've only got 10 years until we're going from 28% to 100% electric. And you can see this has actually had an impact on new car sales. It's not just a lot of hot air. The orange line here are battery electric vehicles, and it has gone up to about 20 something percent, I believe 28% right this year, but we haven't got to the end of the year yet, so they still have time to go up. You can also see that hybrid vehicles, which also have batteries, have gone up a bit, and petrol and diesel have either gone down like diesel or plateaued like petrol, and they're going down as well too. And the reason I want to talk about this with reference to sort of road wear is because they're a lot heavier. The energy density here is for a battery is a fraction of that of petrol. That's 100 times less. So because of that, in order to get a similar sort of range to a petrol car, they need to be a lot heavier. Batteries have to be much heavier to have a similar amount of energy to a fuel tank. You can see a petrol versus electric Vauxhall Corsa is 50% heavier. Oh, and you might be saying, oh, that's 50% heavier. That's not 100 times heavier, is it? There are other factors in there, like for a combustion engine car, only 20% of that energy actually ends up going to the wheels. With an electric car, it's closer to, I think, 80, 100%. So although there's a lot less energy in those batteries, you get a sort of similar range. You're talking 200-300 miles for an electric car and about 400-500 for a petrol car. But this is still a significant difference in weight. And the condition of roads already in the UK isn't great. You can see the RAC estimates that there are at least 1 million potholes on UK roads. 19% of English councils have more than 10% of their minor roads in poor condition, and only 48% of British roads are in good structural condition. It's also the Department of Transport has a 15 billion backlog of pothole repairs. So it's not great already. So I was wondering, if we're going to push for heavier and heavier vehicles and our roads are already deteriorating, here's a little graph chart from the RAC. it would suggest that the problem's already getting worse. So that brings us on to the experiments. The American Association of State Highways officials, it's now transportation officials as well, they carried out an experiment in Illinois. So there's Chicago, just west of Chicago. You can see it's on what is now the alignment of Interstate 80. At the time, it doesn't exist. You can see here. This dotted line is the current Interstate 80, and they built 6 loops along there. Not 6? Oh yeah, 6, and 2 more here. And they basically drove trucks of various weights around them and investigated what would happen to the tarmac. Oh yeah, you can see this. I think that's loop 2, it might be loop 1, I'm not sure. One of them can still be seen today on Google Earth. And what they got from driving trucks around these loops was that the weight of a vehicle affects the wear on the road from that vehicle by its 4th power. So here's a more modern equation, I guess, for road wear potential. And you can see here, there's the weight of the vehicle, and it increases by the 4th power. The other thing that's included in this equation is number of axles, because the more axles you have, then since this is divided by the number of axles, then the more the weight spread out on the road, but it's also multiplied by the number of axles again, because the more axles you have, the more it's sort of rubbing along the road. So if we go back to our comparison of a petrol versus electric Vauxhall Corsa, if we divide the weight of an electric Corsa by the weight of a petrol Corsa and then put that to the power of 4, we get about 5 times the road wear potential. So even though that's only 50% heavier, we're talking about 5 times the road wear. A road only driven on by electric Corsas will have 1/5 of the service life compared to if they were petrol. That's what 5 times the road wear potential basically means. So now that we know that road wear increases disproportionately with weight, you might be thinking, oh no, all the roads are going to collapse, but there's already a big difference between the weight of combustion and between cars and lorries. Most cars are about 1.5 tons, 1 ton, but the max weight of an HGV in the UK is 44 tons. That's the cab and the trailer, so the entire thing is 44 tons. If we use the old equation, then we can see that going from a 1 ton to a 1.5 ton car, which is like going from a petrol to an electric car, is about 5 times the difference. We already established that, didn't we? But going from a car to a fully loaded lorry is that's 4 orders of magnitude increase. That's 50,000 times more road wear. So if you look at it that way, going from a combustion energy car to an electric car is not a big deal compared to just one lorry. Although the road wear is disproportionately affected by weight, it's not a big deal compared to HGVs, which are significantly larger than cars. I mean, as we said, the electric cars are about 50% heavier than petrol cars, and the lorry is about 44 cars. So here's the study I've been referencing. You can see that this is about 50,000 times greater of an impact than cars. If you look closely, you probably can't see, but the column for battery electric vehicles is noticeably higher than for combustion energy cars. But again, that just pales in comparison to even buses and coaches and HGVs, of which there are a lot fewer of compared to cars. But even though there are a lot fewer of them, the difference is just massive on road wear, and even though there are fewer of them, they still cause more road wear. An interesting thing is also the 50% increase clearly has a much larger effect on heavier vehicles from the orange and the blue columns. It's got a much larger difference there when the base mass weight of a vehicle is already quite high. So like if you were to electrify like bicycles, that's going to have basically no impact on road wear. So this study suggests that a complete conversion of the existing vehicle fleet to battery electric would be likely to increase annual road wear by around 20 to 40%. So not the 5 times we were seeing before. Now what this would do is you would need more money putting into the road maintenance in order to keep the roads at the same point. There's already a 15 billion backlog of pothole repairs though, and the study does suggest that you'd need, this is just for Scotland, so for Scotland £164 million per year. This 15 billion backlog is for the whole UK, so you'd be seeing more than that for the whole UK. But the point still stands, you'd need to spend more, and we're already not spending enough. So that is kind of the answer to a question. Are EVs too heavy for our roads? Well, they are, but it's not as bad as it seems. £164 million a year is not a huge amount. It is more for the UK, but compared to a 15 billion backlog, it's not a big deal. It's also important to note that electrification does have benefits, obviously. That's why it's happening. It has benefits for health, like lung diseases and asthma and that sort of stuff. And if that has positive externalities for the NHS and the government can save money on that, then obviously it could put this money into it. But electrification does also have a lot of other hidden costs. It's not just, yay, no more climate change. For example, the worsened safety. We did talk about the increased weight of electric vehicles, and that comes into play in safety. If you study physics, you'll know the equations for momentum and kinetic energy are mass times velocity and half mass times velocity squared. In both cases, mass is a factor. So, heavier vehicles, more damage. An attempt at mitigation is ADAS systems. That stands for Advanced Driver Assistance Systems, I think. And this entails sort of lane keep assist, automatic emergency braking, basically things that try to stop you crashing into things. A lot of drivers don't like this, but they are now mandatory in most cars, and it does seem to have a positive impact on safety. Another problem with electric cars in terms of safety is they're very fast. Compared to a petrol or a diesel car, there's no gearbox, no clutch, no gears, instant torque, there's no throttle response in that. So when you have people pressing the wrong the wrong pedal, it's a lot worse in an electric car than it is in a combustion engine car. And that combined with the additional weight makes them somewhat more dangerous. They're also silent, or at least naturally silent, so for pedestrians and cyclists, they don't hear them coming. They do legally need a noise below a certain speed. It's below 20 kilometers an hour, they need a noise of at least 56 decibels, and a maximum of 75. I guess you don't want too much noise pollution. There are also other environmental downsides that come with electrification. About 20% more tyre particulate matter because heavier vehicles cause more tyre wear. And I think the point I was trying to make is there are other things we can also do that aren't just electric cars, like investment or subsidizing public transport, active travel, cycle lanes and that sort of stuff. And they also help with decarbonisation without perhaps causing so much of a safety question and being a bit less of a money sink. Especially public transport and active travel tend to be much more of an overall positive for the economy than investing into automobiles. So, thank you for listening to me. Here are my sources, and here is a lovely quote from the AA president.